You ever wonder how those price comparison sites actually work? Or how researchers can just, sift through thousands of online reviews in a flash? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on a really powerful and, yeah, sometimes controversial technique that makes all of that possible. Okay, so picture this. The internet is basically the world's biggest library, right? But all the books are just thrown on the floor in a giant, messy pile. It's a treasure trove of information, for sure. Stock prices, product reviews, you name it. But finding what you need and organizing it, that's the real challenge. So how do you collect all that data without losing your mind? Right, so that's the big puzzle. How do you turn all that digital chaos into something you can actually use? It's this incredible opportunity, but you need the right key to unlock it. And that key, my friends, is a process called web scraping. It's basically the secret sauce for automatically gathering tons of data from websites and turning that big old mess into clean, organized information you can actually do something with. I mean, can you imagine trying to copy and paste information from like 1,000 different web pages by hand? It would take forever. Web scraping is what automates that entire nightmare. It uses these little programs or bots to do all the heavy lifting for you, pulling down millions of data points without you ever having to click a thing. So, how does this magic actually work? It's really not as complicated as it sounds. We can break it down with a pretty simple analogy. Just think of it like a robot that's been given a building's blueprint. Okay, so at its heart, pretty much every web scraping job follows these four basic steps. First, the bot sends a request to a website, which is exactly what your browser does when you type in a URL. Second, the website sends back all its raw code, and the bot has to parse it. Think of this like getting a giant box of Legos all jumbled up, and your first job is to sort them by color and shape so you can see what you're working with. Third, the bot finds and extracts the exact little pieces it needs, say the price of a product or the headline of an article. And finally, step four, it saves all that data nice and neat in a structured file, like a spreadsheet. So remember that blueprint I mentioned? In the web world, that blueprint is called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language. It's the standard language that gives every single web page its structure. It uses these things called tags to define everything you see, headings, paragraphs, links, all of it. For a scraper, knowing how to read this blueprint is absolutely step one. All right, so if HTML is the blueprint, then you need a skilled robot to read it, right? That's where a tool like BeautifulSoup comes in. It's a super popular library in Python that's designed to be that robot. It navigates the complex HTML, finds the exact tags you're looking for, and just pulls the data out nice and clean. It makes the whole process way, way easier. But of course, it's not always that easy. You knew there was a catch, right? A lot of websites really don't want to be scraped, so they actively try to block these bots. And this creates this constant, fascinating technical cat and mouse game. Let's dive into the obstacle course a scraper has to run. Okay, one of the biggest hurdles scrapers face today is the difference between static and dynamic websites. A static site? That's the easy stuff. It's like a printed page in a book. All the content is delivered at once in the HTML. Simple. But a dynamic website? That's a whole different beast. It uses JavaScript to load content on the fly as you scroll or click around. Think about flight prices that update in real time. For a basic scraper, trying to get that data is like trying to read a magical book where the words only appear after you turn to the right page and tap it. It's much, much trickier. And websites have a whole arsenal of other tricks up their sleeve too. They can use rate limiting to block you if you make too many requests too fast. They can throw up those annoying CAPTCHAs to prove you're human. They can even just change their HTML layout overnight, which instantly breaks any scraper that's looking for a specific structure. It's this constant battle, which is why scraping can be so fragile. So, between all these technical roadblocks and the very real possibility of accidentally overwhelming a website's server, it becomes pretty clear you can't just go around scraping everything in sight. And that brings us to a really crucial point. There's a right way and a wrong way to do this. The very first stop for any responsible scraper, and I mean the very first, should be a file called robots.txt. You can usually find it just by typing a website's main address and adding robots.txt at the end. Think of this file as the website's house rules for bots. It tells them you can go here, but please don't go there. Respecting this is just rule number one, no exceptions. And honestly, before you even think about writing a scraper, you should always check if the website offers something called an API. An API is like the official, sanctioned front door for getting data. The website built it for you to use. Scraping, on the other hand, is kind of like finding an unlocked window around back. Yeah, it might get you inside, but it's not the intended way, and that window could be locked at any time. A developer on Reddit put it perfectly. They said, an API is like a direct data feed the site gives you. Scraping is what you do when the site doesn't offer that. The API is always cleaner. And that's exactly it. The API gives you clean, structured data, it's more stable, and you're playing by the rules. So please always, always check for an API first. Okay, so this brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? Is any of this actually legal? Well, the answer is it's complicated. It really exists in this fascinating legal gray area, and there's one landmark court case that illustrates this perfectly. So, this big case was between a company called HiQ Labs and LinkedIn. HiQ was scraping public profile data from LinkedIn. LinkedIn said stop and sent them a cease and desist. But then the courts actually sided with HiQ at first. They argued that scraping data that's publicly accessible to anyone isn't the same as illegal hacking. But it didn't end there. The case went back and forth for years, all the way to the Supreme Court. And in the end, the final outcome hinged on something totally different. The court decided HiQ had violated LinkedIn's terms of service. The whole legal battle really boiled down to this one central question. If data is publicly visible to everyone on the internet, is it a form of unauthorized access for a bot to see it too? The courts really wrestled with this, basically suggesting that if something is public, well, it's public for everyone, including bots. So what's the takeaway? The legal landscape is still pretty murky. While scraping data that's out in the open, public for all to see, is generally more defensible, that terms of service agreement, that super long document nobody ever reads, can still be enforced. It means you're still in a gray area. So, where does all this leave us? Well, web scraping is an incredibly powerful tool. It can be used for amazing research, for business intelligence, for all kinds of innovation. But like with any great power, it comes with a pretty big dose of responsibility. So, if you're thinking about this, here's a quick mental checklist to run through. First, is there an official API? If there is, just use it, period. Second, did you check the robots.txt file? You gotta respect the website's rules. Third, know what you're up against. Is it a dynamic site that's going to be tricky? And finally, are you aware of the site's terms of service? Because as we saw, they definitely still matter. And all of this leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. In a world where data is one of the most valuable resources there is, who really gets to decide how it's used? Is it the platform that hosts the data? Or is it the public, for whom the data is visible? That's a huge question, and it's one we're all going to be grappling with for a long, long time.